Sonic Unleashed is one of my favorite games of all time. Too bad I can only play it on a 20-year-old console. Yeah, we're talking about Sonic Unleashed on PC today, and it's a topic I've always wanted to cover because it's just such a weird situation. People have wanted a Sonic Unleashed remaster or just a port of the game for the longest time, and for good reason. The game is excellent, but it's held back tremendously by technical issues. It's a miracle that some stages on the PS3 version run at 60 FPS, because despite the game being graphically stunning for its time, the frame rate chugs a lot. There are literally moments where the frames drop well below 30 FPS, and that's just not acceptable for a Sonic game. And of course, there are ways to play Unleashed with better frame rates. If you have a good enough PC, then you can emulate the game to get higher frame rates, but emulation isn't perfect, and you'll experience crashes very often. You could also play Unleashed at 60 FPS on the Xbox Series consoles, but buying a completely new console just for Unleashed isn't really ideal, especially since the game doesn't even run at 1080p. So there isn't really a good way to play Sonic Unleashed on modern hardware, which is why a port of the game is so necessary. And despite the demand for an Unleashed port, we still haven't gotten one, not even a simple port to PC. Sega is a company that tends to listen to fan feedback all the time, so the fact that there's been absolutely no acknowledgement has people really skeptical. And it turns out that there may be some internal reasons to why Sonic Unleashed just can't get ported, at least not now. And I just want to put a disclaimer right here. None of what I'm about to say is confirmed. It is purely speculation on why we haven't seen a port of this game yet. So there are two reasons. We'll start with the smallest, and this is a very small one. Have you ever wondered why the game's main theme, Endless Possibility, isn't available on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music? The song was co-written and performed by Joyride, therefore he owns a portion of the copyright to the song. And I'm just assuming here that Sega just doesn't want to pay the copyright fee. That's why re-releases of Unleashed soundtrack just don't include the main theme of the game, which actually makes a lot of sense. And of course, if they can't get the rights to the game's opening theme, then how would they be able to port it? Well, it doesn't take a genius to think of a workaround. All they could really do is get a different vocalist to sing the lyrics. That's it, really. And if they go that route, then there's literally no one better than Nathan Sharp, who both performed the song at the Sonic Symphony and made an original track for Frontiers. But this whole thing just doesn't seem very likely to me. Is Sega really not able to pay for the license to use the original song? Is it really that bad? I don't really know how any of this works, so I could be talking out of my ass here, but I just don't think the reason why Unleashed hasn't been ported is because of a song. Sonic 3 finally got ported, and it just changed up some of the tracks that Sega didn't own the licenses to. And, well, I mean, say what you will about that, but why is this any different? Well, there is a much bigger reason, and this one is far more likely if you ask me at least. Both Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations use the Havoc physics engine, and there are supposedly some licensing issues going on there. Now, this would make a lot of sense. Generations has also not gotten a port to modern consoles, so if Sega just can't get the licensing for the engine, then that makes sense. It's actually a very similar situation with Sonic Heroes. That game will be very difficult to port because the engine it uses is literally defunct. So if they wanted to port the game, they would have to use a completely different engine, and that really goes for Unleashed as well. But since the Havoc physics engine isn't defunct, then I don't think it's very likely that they will port the game to a different engine rather than just buying the license, and I wouldn't want them to anyway. Just look at Sonic Colors Ultimate. That game was built in an entirely different engine, and it turned out terribly. Do we really want the same happening with Sonic Unleashed? And this actually leads to kind of an extra reason. Maybe they just don't have the time to remaster it. After what happened with Colors Ultimate, I think they learned their lesson when it comes to handing their IPs over to inexperienced developers and giving them little time to actually work on the project. This has actually happened numerous times in the past with this company. It's just not very likely that a remaster of any game would be done in-house, considering that they're hard at work on actual new projects. As much as I would like to see them handle the remasters themselves, it's just not very likely, especially for a franchise as big as Sonic that's pumping out games pretty frequently. So if a port happens at all, then I want it to be done right. I don't want them to rush out a buggy remaster of one of my favorite games of all time. They already pretty much ruined Colors with the remaster of that game. I really don't want the cycle to repeat itself with Sonic Unleashed, especially since people have been wanting a remaster of this game for years. It may be a very long time until we actually get a remaster or just a PC port, but if that means that it will actually be done right, then I'm fine with waiting. If it is going to happen, don't rush it, please. But that's going to end this short video, everybody. I've been wanting to cover this topic for a while now, so I really hope you enjoyed it. So as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.